All right, I think we're going to kick things off here. So first, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's taking some time out from their day to join us for this conversation around considerations for reopening safely. My name is Bulbul Gupta. I'm the president and CEO of Pacific Community Ventures, the group that runs the business advising platform that many of you participate in and have probably signed up for this webinar through. And I just joined PCV in this role in the last 7.5 months or so, and was really lucky to be on the board for PCV before that. And I wanted to step in and join the conversation today, partly just in gratitude for all of the hard work you all are doing. I know several of you are small business owners, some of you are advisors, and I know that the past 3 or 4 months have especially not been easy, on top of all of the hard work that small business owners go through on a regular basis. And beyond just the shelter in place regulations, the PPP legislation that hopefully many of you were able to leverage. And on top of that, in the last couple of weeks, a lot of the unrest, the racial injustice, the killings, the protests that many of us have seen, the communities that many of us work in have been affected by. It's just compounding both in terms of the considerations we would think to go through in terms of reopening safely, much less our own personal, physical, and mental health as well. And so I think with that, I just wanted to start with a note of gratitude for all of the hard work you guys are all doing, taking care of yourselves, your families, and also as you think about your employees and customers on a whole different level of what reopening safely might mean this week than it even did just 2 weeks ago. The racial injustice we're seeing is certainly not specific to any one community or region or industry. You know, those of you might be working in, just as we've seen COVID-19 reach all corners of the earth, this kind of injustice is certainly in all corners of the earth in different ways as well, particularly heightened, it seems, in America in a much more systemic way. Something that we at PCV as an organization and CDFI, doing lending as well as business advising, try to address in our work on a day-to-day basis, given the very small and diverse business owners we work with. It's something we are really committed to doing that much more and better, and look to you for any feedback you all might have to help us be better on that journey as well. Something I just wanted to also, call out as we think about the considerations for reopening safely that our team will walk you through further is also just thinking about our work around good jobs in the past year or two really helps us to prioritize as we think about employee health alongside business health. It's something we have been really committed to. It's something we are more and more committed to as a really important part of the reopening safely and ramping back up again in your business. Obviously something a lot of you are thinking about in terms of employee health, customer health, your own health as you reopen, and how our framework, our business advising service, and the toolkit we especially help deliver through the business advising platform, as well as with advisors who are especially trained in the Good Jobs Toolkit. As much as that can be helpful to you, please do know that that is an offer, and that is something that if you haven't already, you can also request through your relationship manager and through the business advising platform. And if there's anything else that we can do to be helpful to you on this journey of reopening, beyond this webinar, using the Good Jobs Toolkit, or those of you who are working in especially affected communities, please do reach out if there's anything more that we can do to be helpful. We are also just really actively working with several of our small business owners in affected communities and really thinking about the cleanup that they are now also doing in addition to just reopening safely, especially as many counties start to lift some of their shelter in places this week and in the coming weeks. And so I just wanted to also offer, if there's anything I can do to be personally helpful, please feel free to reach out through your relationship manager. I know they will share the emails for that towards the end of the presentation, that if you're not already intimately in touch with your relationship manager, you certainly can be by the end of this presentation. And I would just ask if there's anything that comes up now for those of you who are on the call, considerations you're especially going through as you think about reopening this week, and wanting to share any stories about how you have been either personally or your business has been affected in the last week or two. I welcome you to participate in the chat box here, either now or during the rest of this webinar, and let us know how you've been affected or if there's anything we can do to help, and certainly feel free to follow up afterwards. So I'll give it a minute in the chat box if there's anything that comes up that anybody would like to share in terms of experiences. Otherwise, I will also stay on for the webinar itself, and happy to turn it over to Morgan Dickerson, our program manager for business advising, to help walk us through the presentation and additional questions that come up for reopening. Thanks again for taking the time to be here, and I'll turn it over to Morgan and keep my eye on the chat box if anyone has any stories they want to share or any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bulbul, for taking the time to speak with everyone here today. Like Bulbul mentioned, it's a difficult time. There's a lot compounding on top of each other. And what we want to do is be of service to you. So the plan for today is to present you all with some general topics of consideration that should be on top of your mind as you're planning to reopen your business, along with some examples of what we're seeing some small businesses doing to address these needs and these concerns. We'd love to hear from you if there are some things that you're doing or that you're considering doing or seeing others doing that fit along with these considerations, because we want to learn from each other. We also encourage you to take the learnings today, the resources and the information that we share, take that to your PC advisor to help develop your own customized plan for your specific situation. As we'll see, so much is dependent on your location, your industry. We couldn't cover a how to reopen safely guide for every single person in this webinar here today, but we want you to use your PC advisor to do that, combined with the information we share here. So the first topic of consideration we're going to share is developing a plan, and that includes looking at the policies and the regulations of your specific area, taking account your strategy and your funding, all while being flexible and adaptable. Just as a bridge is built to sway, we want your plan to be built to adjust to the different elements. So within that, the official policies and best practice guidance is going to vary so drastically between different locations. You can start off with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They have a state-by-state business reopening guidance. All the text in this presentation that is green and highlighted green is a link to a relevant resource that you can access after this presentation. We'll be sharing this as a resource. So beyond this U.S. Chamber of Commerce website that kind of outlines this, the guidance state by state, you can also consult your state, county, and city government websites and official social media pages. This will give you the most localized and most up-to-date information regarding the specific policies and regulations that you'll have to abide to. In addition to variances by location, so much is going to change based on what industry you're in. So how to reopen a restaurant versus a gym versus an office space is going to look different. So I've linked some how-to guides, some guidance documents for different industries included here that you can kind of take a look at specific to you. And like I said at the start, the guidance that we're providing here today is meant to be general and applicable to all. And then you'll have to work with your advisor to figure out how you can apply it specifically. So we're finding at this time, people are using it to really deepen the connection to your mission, evaluating what's truly essential and what's at the core of your business. Keeping this in mind throughout the entire process will really allow you to keep that focus. And that's something we encourage throughout the entirety of this process here today and as you reopen. For most, reopening your business is going to look a lot more like starting something new. What your business looks like after this crisis versus what it was before. There may not be a lot of similarities, there may be some, but kind of acknowledging that this is going to be the new normal. Addressing that will allow you to kind of think about, what is a new business model going to look like for you, with considerations of your budget, your space and location, your supply chain, your products and services, your revenue impact, all building up into your new business model. The timing of your reopening is going to be dependent on a lot of factors. One resource that you can use to help you in making this decision is the CDC decision-making tool. I've linked that here as well, so you can kind of review after this as well. It'll ask you a series of yes or no questions to help you easily arrive at your decision and help you keep in mind what considerations that are necessary in order to do so. And regardless of when you do plan on reopening, we want to encourage everyone to start preparing now. Even if you're not cleared for opening in your state, it's so important to get started so that when you are cleared to reopen, you can do so, you feel comfortable and are prepared. And finally, I want to encourage you all to lean on your own personal judgment and what your own comfort levels are. So for example, if you're in a state that doesn't require face coverings, but that's something that you feel more comfortable with, feel free to include that into your store's policy, your company's policies. If you live in a state that's allowing workers to go back, but you're not quite comfortable with that yet, use your own judgment in order to do so. This is your business, your plan. You want to adhere to the regulations, but you also want to, keep true to your morals and your personal comfort levels. So we know that funding is a huge challenge for small businesses right now. Accessing that capital is something that's consistent across all industries, all small business owners. And what we're seeing is that people that are able to access some kind of disaster relief funding are the ones that are more secure in their reopening plans and are going to have a better shot. So with that, we encourage you guys to seek out both federal and local government programs. There still is funding in the second wave of the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. We encourage you to apply for that as soon as possible. And I've included a link here to a page where you can find an eligible lender. Beyond the support coming from the public sector, there are a lot of private grant programs that are arising. Things like the Facebook and Salesforce, I'm sure you've heard the buzz around those commitments. And while those two are no longer taking applications, we do have linked a couple lists that are updated frequently and include some of these other programs coming from the private sector for grants and loans that are still available and taking applications. And beyond that, you can also consider engaging your customer base, and this can look like selling gift cards if you're not open right now, or open at a smaller capacity. Offering the option of gift cards can bring in some cash immediately for them to enjoy later. Also, utilizing some crowdfunding platforms. The general population is acknowledging the importance of supporting small businesses, and they're rallying around you guys and they're wanting to support. So, take advantage of this moment. One example I wanted to spotlight here was Clay by the Bay. They're a pottery studio in San Francisco that had to close their doors right from the start. And they're working on ways to kind of adjust. But in the meantime, they started a GoFundMe page to allow students and customers to support the staff, and they raised about $25,000 through that. As I've expressed and as we've all experienced, things are changing constantly. And there's going to be an element of learning while doing as you guys are reopening. So it's important to recognize that, we may not get it perfect on day one. Mistakes may happen as you execute your plan. And you may find that certain elements of reopening are more challenging and difficult than you expected. So we want you to recognize that, anticipate and prepare for challenges in order to, overcome potential obstacles. So how do you do this? How do you be adaptable and agile in your business? So first and foremost, ask and listen to customer and employee feedback. They have some very important things to say, and in addition to that, analyze your data. I know this can be a little scary for some folks, but take a look at your sales data, take a look at your customer behavior, take a look at your costs and your expenses. Keep an eye on your business analytics to understand kind of what's working and what's not. So then you can make adjustments based off of that feedback you receive and that customer and employee data. You can make these adjustments accordingly. And that may look like changes in your pricing, changes in your physical store layout, changes in your product offering. And to the best of your ability, do this as quickly as possible. Make these changes as quickly as possible, because it's only gonna help. A small business that I wanted to highlight here is Rock and Wagner Bakery. So they really listened to their customers. They really observed their customers' behaviors, and they altered their product offering because of it. So originally a cafe, they were able to adapt their menu to be more takeout friendly, because obviously that's the trend and guidance right now. And beyond just offering their same menu, they had to adapt it to be, what is going to be quality for takeout, because not everything is as good as in person. Beyond that, they were hearing that, their customers don't really want to go food shopping at a bunch of different places. So they started offering pantry items for sale. So they could be a one-stop shop. They can get their takeout as well as some pantry food items. And they also looked at their customer behavior and just noticing the trends of, the uptick in both baking and cooking. And they started offering food preparation kits. So yeah, just listening to that feedback, seeing what's happening, and then adjusting your business accordingly. Before we move on, I just want to pause to allow anyone to kind of chat in any experiences that they've had with their specific plan and their specific business. Is there anything that you're planning on doing or have done that others can kind of learn from and adapt? You should be able to chat in if there's anything you guys would like to share. And if not, we can continue on. But I do want to encourage you guys to share your experiences, because this is why the community of entrepreneurs is so valuable. We can learn from each other. So we'll move on, but continue to chat in any experiences you guys are having personally. So the next big bucket of consideration is caring for your customers. You want to be a customer service pro, no question, and you can do so by protecting the health and safety of your customers, focusing on meaningful communication, and ultimately practicing empathy in everything that you do. So in order to protect the health and safety of all of your customers, this will likely look like implementation of new store policies that will adhere to the physical social distancing guidelines brought to you by the CDC and then your local area. This could look like limiting the number of customers in your store. For an example here, the Boulevard Station, a hair salon in Arizona, they implemented a policy that you can only be in the salon if you were getting your hair cut. So when you arrive, you have to stay outside, text the owner that you have arrived, and then you can only enter when they're ready to cut your hair. You may also want to consider asking your customers to wear face masks if they're entering your retail store or your place of business. One local barber required that, and even when they were trimming around your ears, you still had to keep that face mask. You had to hold that over your face to continue to ensure that safety. You may also want to think about dedicating shopping hours for vulnerable populations like the elderly, children, those who are medically vulnerable. And ideally, these shopping hours would correspond and align with your cleaning schedule to ensure the utmost safety for these populations. And finally, you may want to adjust your store hours to account for curfews. So I know I'm in San Francisco, and we've had curfew hours that no one can be outside after 8 p.m. as a response to the violence that we've seen happening after these protests. So adjusting your store hours, maybe 30 minutes before that curfew to allow your customers the safety of going home afterwards. Another thing you can do to protect the health and safety of your customers is, increase the offerings for pickup and delivery service. That can look like online ordering or curbside pickup, and this will help minimize that in-store contact. One example we have here is a small business called Old Time Antiques and More. They use social media to post pictures of their items, letting customers purchase online and then come to the store to pick up curbside. And one thing that I really like about this story is that they didn't need to implement some fancy, super involved e-commerce system in order to do this. They're using their social media platform, a platform that they already have and are comfortable with, and their customers already use and are familiar with in order to do so. So it doesn't need to be something crazy and big. It's just figuring out how to be creative in offering that with what you have as well. Another important aspect is to consider is communication with your customers. In all of your communications, you want to be transparent and authentic. And this may contradict typical mentality of portraying yourself as an entrepreneur and a business that has it all together. But during these sensitive times, it's so important to be real with everyone, real with your customers. So once you have your reopening plan established, you want to share that. You want to spread the word. You want to get them informed. And even if you don't have your exact date for reopening set, you want to still keep in touch with your customers and encourage them to stay tuned for when you do have it all together. One way you can do that is creating and sharing an FAQ document, answering questions about your specific supply chain, your health and safety protocols that you've updated, any potential risks. And one small business that's been doing that is Rose Designs. So Carly Rose of Rose Designs did exactly that. She published their COVID protocol on their website for all to see. And she's also actually shared it with the PCV community as well, so you can kind of leverage that and see what others are doing. And as you communicate, you want to make sure that you're using multiple channels of communication to really get your message across, get it widely received and reinforced. And that'll look like updating your website, updating social media, adding physical signage to your business, to your store, to your location, maybe an email campaign, and figuring out how to strategically use all of these channels that you have to ensure that your customers are informed. And then finally, communication is a two-way street. So beyond just sharing information with them, you want to continually gauge the community response. You want to pay attention to what they're saying about you, your competitors, and you want to take customer suggestions seriously and directly acknowledge and share anyone who's commenting on your business. So your customers' lives have been impacted by COVID-19 as well. We all are experiencing, we're all in the same waters, and keeping that in mind, it's important now more than ever to be empathetic to our customers' needs and concerns. And you may consider doing some personal, individualized and genuine check-ins in order to do that. Lumiata is an innovative AI company in the healthcare space. And their CEO reached out to their customers simply to check in. He did just this. You know, there's no ask, no publicity stunt, no marketing, just genuine concern. And even though it wasn't the direct intention, as a result, you know, they're now at the top of their customers' minds. Their reputation is, you know, better than ever. And they did receive some business as a result of it. Also, you know, demonstrating that the customer's interests are a priority, you know, addressing their concerns when they do come in and their feedback. You'll also want to be careful of your marketing messaging, you know, adapting your messaging to your customers to the current context of the world. So for example, this past Tuesday, we saw Blackout Tuesday was a huge movement on social media, where people and companies were pledging, you know, to take the time to pause and listen, and posting something that day, you know, irrelevant to the context of the world, you know, could be perceived as insensitive. So you just want to make sure you're adapting your messaging to what's happening. Understanding that your customers' disposable incomes are likely limited, you can consider offering, you know, payment plans or discounts to customers. And then ultimately, you know, just thinking about what are your customers' needs and adjusting your offerings and your products to that. Predicting, you know, what do you think the customers will need today and tomorrow so that you can be prepared for that. And again, I'll just take a quick pause. If anyone wants to chat in, anything you're doing to ensure the safety of your customers and communicating with your customers, we'd love to hear how you're, you know, demonstrating that care. All right, like I said, if you do have anything that you'd like to share, anything that you're doing, please chat in throughout the whole presentation, and we can kind of take a look at that and learn from each other. But moving on, we can move on to the next topic of consideration, which is, you know, thinking of your employees. Just as you did for your customers, you'll want to protect their health and safety, focus on meaningful communication and training, all while practicing empathy, understanding that it really is a tough world for all of us right now. And through that, you'll get to the world's best boss status, just like Michael Scott. So one of the first things that you can do to protect your employees' health and safety is limiting the number of employees in the store. So for example, Santa Clara County here in California, they actually have a policy that limits the number of workers, one per every 300 square feet. So keeping that in mind in any of your specific areas, guidance in mind as you bring on your staff. And with this, you'll want to assess your staffing needs. If you've had to let people go when the tragedy first hit, you may want to consider whether you can offer limited hours to everybody and bring back everybody, or if it makes more sense to only bring back a few key individuals on their regular hours. All keeping in mind, what's it going to look like as we are re-expanding your employee base as business picks up again. You can modify and stagger employee schedules and breaks to help maintain physical distancing protocols and adhere to any kind of guidance that your county has as far as number of employees in the store. And you can always encourage remote work where possible, especially thinking about some of those high-risk employees, moving them to some non-public facing roles or remote type roles. So using your employees' input and help, you'll want to implement some updated sanitation and cleaning protocols. So you can learn from CDC's guidance to build out your own routine and cleaning and disinfecting. That link there links to CDC's guidance on that. You'll want to make sure you're disinfecting all workstations and countertops and handrails and doorknobs and tools and equipments and anything that can be widely touched. You'll want to factor in cleaning time into your scheduling. So maybe this looks like asking employees to come in a half hour early or stay a half hour late to truly disinfect and clean. So to do a quality job, it's going to take more time than usual. And you'll want to make sure that you build that into the schedule and fairly compensate your employees for that. And then finally, as far as sanitation and cleaning, you want to ensure that you have the adequate cleaning supplies. Take a look at your inventory, knowing that you may need to stock up on certain products. So even personally, it's taken me a couple trips to the grocery store to get paper towels and Lysol wipes. So acknowledging that's why it's so important to plan ahead early, as we were talking about it at the start. In relation to your employees' health, it's so important to promote the general hygiene practices, encouraging proper etiquette for coughing and sneezing and hand washing, providing tissues and no-touch trash cans and soap and water and hand sanitizer. You really want to encourage employees to practice those general hygiene best practices. You can also encourage your employees to skip customary physical greetings, such as handshakes and hugs, as we know that this only helps to spread the virus. You want to make sure you adhere to appropriate PPE, the personal protective equipment guidelines, and you can even consider, is this something that you'll be providing to your employees? And finally, you want to take a look at, monitoring employees' health. And this may look like temperature checks. This may look like, deliberate check-ins, asking employees about their health and just being more observant of what's going on. What may be most important is reevaluating your sick leave policies. You want to create an environment where people feel comfortable and empowered to stay home when they're sick and when they're caring for sick family members or children, given schools are closed. And the policies that you have will drive that environment and that feeling. So part of PCV's Good Jobs, Good Business toolkit, we have some practical how-to guides on implementing paid leave and health benefits at your business. So you can always click into that and take a look at how you can implement that in your own. So just as you are with your customers, you want to be transparent and authentic in all of your communications with your employees. It's a tough time, and they're looking to you for leadership through this. So as inspiring as you can be as well, that's going to be super important too. First and foremost, any communications, any guides, any training and education that you provide, you want to make sure that it's in an easy to understand format. There's a lot of resources going around, some more user-friendly than others, and you want to make sure that everything that you do share is in that easy to understand format. The appropriate language, if the bulk of your employees speak Spanish. I know the CDC website has an option to switch it to Spanish. And with that, that may look like, a review of the materials you share may be your reopening strategy and your new policies. It may be COVID-related resources, but you want it to always be easy to understand. Similarly, you want to be strategic in the channels of communication that you select with your employees. Any way that you can move meetings virtually, that's a great strategy to help with the social distancing. Be strategic whether you email or text or call your employees to give them the updates. Once you've established your new policies, share them with your team in a way that's easy to understand. And then also share resources on COVID, including, how to screen themselves for symptoms, how it spreads and how to slow that spread, how to protect yourself and others. And always in your messaging, you want to ensure that you encourage your workers to stay home if they are sick. Given the current events surrounding racism in this country, you may want to consider providing some kind of anti-bias training. And you'll want that to be, both reflective, allowing employees and everyone to acknowledge their own implicit biases and, take a moment to pause and see, where we're at. But you also want it to be action-oriented so that you can develop a plan for, counteracting those implicit biases or, expectations in real-life scenarios. What happens if you come across an abrasive customer or you need to mediate any kind of conflict? So implementing any kind of anti-bias training is super relevant at this time. And finally, just as with our customers, we want to practice empathy with our employees as well. We're all going through this together. Yes, everyone's situations are different, but we are all going through this together. So it'll be really important to have one-on-one conversations with your employees, and this will give you a great opportunity to check in, see how they're feeling, see if there's anything you can do to make their lives easier or give them more peace of mind about their health and safety. You can talk about their concerns about the curfews and their commutes and their safety and their pay and their stress and all of these things on a one-on-one basis to really acknowledge where they're at and make changes to ensure that they stay safe. You want to create processes for getting feedback, and that'll be both formal and informal. You want to listen to your employees and really ensure that their voices are heard. Once you have that input, you can address their concerns and make updates and use that adaptability that we were talking about at the start in order to adjust accordingly. And finally, it's just so important to be present. Be present with your employees, be there, and be understanding. And lastly, the last big topic of consideration we've found is, your physical space. You want to adhere to both your local and personal policies and best practices when it comes to social distancing, and that may look like rearranging some furniture. You'll need to consider all these changes to your store, to your office, to your physical space, and that may include posting an employee near the door to ensure maximum capacity isn't exceeded. Customers are wearing face masks and adhering to your protocols. Everyone's maintaining an adequate social distance. You may want to post some clear signage of the new policies, letting customers know, if you do require face masks in order to enter, you'll need a sign out front. In places where employees or customers are queuing up or lining up, maybe waiting to be checked out, make sure you have, or you can include some tape or some sign on the ground to indicate, what's 6 feet. What's that safe 6 feet distance? If you have one-way traffic patterns established, again, maybe tape on the floor with some arrows to direct folks in the right way. You may need to make some installations of plexiglass guards to, create barriers between employees and customers at checkouts, or install hand sanitation stations or hand washing stations in your store where you may not have otherwise. Rethinking the layout of tables, desks, workspaces, displays, and eliminating communal use items, product samples, anything that'll be touched by multiple people. You want to limit those in your store or in your business. You may also want to implement contactless payment whenever possible. So that can be Venmo, Zelle, PayPal, taking credit card numbers over the phone. Modifying and closing break rooms or public seating, addressing, the amount of people in a certain space and how your furniture and your setup kind of allows for that. And finally, just creating an appealing and comforting environment. So you're going to be making all of these changes, but you still want your place of business to be somewhere that people are comfortable, they feel safe, and is appealing to them, because we want them to come back to your place. So to wrap it up, let us know how we can help. Just as Bulbul started off, we want to end the same way. We want to be here to support all of you. Your dedicated team of relationship managers is here for you. Myself, Natalia, and Bulbul are here for you. Reach out to your relationship manager if you need to reconnect with your advisor, or sign up to be part of our PCV community if you aren't already, because we're here to help. So with just the last few minutes that we do have, I think that there have been some questions coming into the chat. I think Bulbul and Natalia, you guys have been able to address them. But we can take a look. Feel free to chat in your questions. All right.
We have one more question that needs to be addressed yet. That it says, is it required to have a copy of the company policy posted at storefront?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to say it'll depend on your local regulations on whether or not it's required. I think it's definitely a good best practice. You want to educate your customers and your employees on what you're doing to ensure their safety, and also what they can do to help ensure everybody's safety based off of your policies. So I think it's definitely a best practice. Whether or not it's required, you'll definitely want to take a look at your specific city's policies. feel free to, we'll give another minute for you guys to enter in any questions that you have to the chat box so that we can address.
We had in the direct messages another question about the presentation. Will people have access to the presentation afterwards?
Yes,
and how
absolutely.
will they get it?
Yes, absolutely. We will share this presentation with you all via email. Whatever email you entered when you registered for this webinar, you'll get an email there with a link to the presentation. So like I mentioned at the start, all of those green text fields throughout the presentation are links to relevant and reliable resources that we want to share with you. So yes, absolutely, you'll get that, and you'll get that either later today or on Monday through your email. Yes, and additionally, we have a recording of this webinar. We've been recording this, and we'll share it on our YouTube channel, so PCV's YouTube channel. I'll also include that link to the YouTube video in that follow-up email later today.
One last question is, oh, well, there's two more. Derek from ICAC, great presentation. We're looking forward to hosting this information in our Small Business Resource Center. Oh, thanks so much, Derek. Awesome. And then one more question that we got directly was, can we request an additional advisor to help us with these adjustments?
Yes, absolutely. If you are already in a partnership right now and you would need someone with a different skill set to kind of address these specific your specific plans for reopening, we encourage you to reach out to your relationship manager. That'll be Daniel, Peter, or Danielle, whoever you get your general emails from. You can reach out to them and ask them about, being paired with somebody new. It can be more of a short-term relationship, kind of to address the immediate needs. It can look like whatever's needed to you. And if you aren't already part of the PCV Business Advising Program, we encourage you to sign up. And there's a link in the presentation for that sign up that'll get out to you as well. We'll stay on for a few more minutes. If there are any other questions that you have that come in, please do chat to us, and we're happy to stay here to address. But if not, thank you for joining. Thank you for being part of our PCV community. Please be well and stay safe, and we look forward to helping you out however we can.